Hello, once again, my brothers and sisters. Here we are again for another Living Hope Today study. Today, we're going to look at the topic of how to win a war. That's a pretty interesting topic, don't you think? I looked for Google, and they told me today that $2.7 trillion were spent by the nations of the world last year, 2024, to arm themselves, to have defense funds, just think of that number. It's just absolutely huge. Why? They want to defend themselves. They want to win wars. They're trying to kill somebody. Well, Gideon, as you recall, is a judge in the book of Judges, and he is going to discover a way to win a war today that is not on the charts of the world governments. It's very fascinating how God decides to lead him into victory. Let me show you. You get to verse 1. Early in the morning, Jerubbaal, that's Gideon. Remember, they gave him that name because he tore down Baal's altar, all right? But they still know it's Gideon, all right? And all his men camped at the spring of Harod. The camp of Midian was north of them in the valley near the hill of Morah. Okay, so listen to how this is described. Look what God does. He says to Gideon, so the Lord comes to Gideon, his mighty warrior, the guy that doesn't think he can, the guy that wants to put fleeces before God instead of just obey him. God, please prove to me that it's really you and you really want me to do this. God's jumped through all the hoops that Gideon put before him. And now God comes to him and says, what? Hey, Gideon, you have too many men. You have too many men. Too many guys for me to deliver Midian into their hands in order that Israel may not boast against me that her own strength has saved her. You know what, Gideon? If you use your whole army in attacking the Midianites, they're going to think, if I give them victory, they're going to think that they did it. And that's just not the point. I'm the power behind your victory, not how many guys you have, not your weaponry, not your skill in battle, not your strategy, none of that. I'm the strength that supplies the power. I'm the strategist. I can defeat your enemy, but I want you to understand it was me. So you got too many guys, Gideon. What are we going to do about it? Well, announce now to the people, anyone who trembles with fear may turn back and leave Mount Gilead. Oh, okay. Anybody too afraid to go to battle? Well, 22,000 men left, and only 10,000 remained. Oh, okay. So a third of the guys said, okay, if that's the way it is, I'm out. Adios. All right, verse 4. But the Lord said to Gideon, there are still too many guys. So 10,000 guys is still too many guys. You're going to still try to take credit for the victory if we just leave you with 10,000 guys. So take them down to the water, and I will sift them for you there. If I say this one shall go with you, he'll go. But if I say this one shall not go with you, he shall not go. Notice how God knows individual warriors. He knows exactly who they are, and he's willing to call them out and sift through them to find the ones he wants. So Gideon took the men down to the water. There the Lord told him, hey, separate those who lap the water with their tongues like a dog from those who kneel down to drink. All right, so it's time to get a drink from the spring and the river. So somebody's going to stick their face all the way in and do that Fido thing, right? Lick that water up. And somebody's going to use their hand to cup the water and bring it up to their mouth. Okay, so 300 guys out of 10,000, 300 guys lapped up the water with their hands to their mouths, and all the rest got down on their knees to drink. Okay. God uses this as his distinguishing feature. The Lord said to Gideon, with the 300 men that lapped, I will save you and give the Midianites into your hands. Let all the other men go to each to his own place. Okay, so we're going to fire 9,700 guys. You guys go home. And the 300 guys that lap the water in the way that God specified, you're the warriors. Now that we're down to 300 guys, there will be no explanation of the victory other than God gave us the victory. It was his power, strategy, strength that produced the victory. That's the way God likes it. He doesn't want us to understand ourselves as more than we are. We're to humble ourselves before the Lord. We're not looking for what we can do. We're looking for what he can do through us. Right? Gideon's going to either step out in faith here or not. But it looks like he's okay. He says, so Gideon sent the rest of the Israelites to their tents, but kept the 300 who took over the provisions and the trumpets of the others. Now, look at this. I want you to see, first of all, Gideon isn't asking God for another fleece. He's not trying to get more reassurance. He understands that God is in this. God has proven it to him through the wet fleece and the dry fleece. And now, okay, we're going. So if God says get rid of those 9,700 other guys and keep these 300, Gideon says, okay, let's go that way. That's the way. All right. Now we start to learn about the enemy. Now the camp of Midian lay below him in the valley. During that night, the Lord said to Gideon, get up, go down against the camp, because I am going to give it into your hands. Hey, Gideon, it's not going to be those 300 guys. Oh, yeah, they're going to be there. They're going to play the part I tell them to play, but the power, the victory, the miracle is going to be mine. And everybody's going to know it. What's happening here? There are impossible odds. Remember how big and vast the Midianite army is, how powerful they are? They've been oppressing the Israelites for 7 years, so much so that the people have started to run into the caves and the mountains to just have a little modicum of peace, given what the Midianites are going to do to them if they stay in town. Well, God says, look, these 300 guys are going to be a part of it, but I'm going to give it into your hands. Now, if you're afraid to attack, go down to the camp with your servant, Purah. Okay, that's the name of the guy that's helping Gideon, I guess. And listen to what they're saying. Just go down to the Midianite camp and try to hear what's going on. Afterward, you will be encouraged to attack the camp. So he and Purah, his servant, went down to the outposts of the camp. All right, so they're on a little espionage mission to do some recon as God has called them. Well, verse 12, the Midianites, the Amalekites, and all the other eastern peoples had settled in the valley, thick as locusts. Oh, that doesn't mean they have 250 guys and your 300 guys are going to be able to take them. No, that means they're basically innumerable. You know, your 300 guys in modern warfare wisdom would stand absolutely no chance. All right? And look, it says their camels could no more be counted than the sand on the seashore. What does that tell you? Man, huge numbers. That's what it tells you. Huge numbers. Great military might. Gideon arrived just as a man was telling a friend his dream. So by God's providence, Gideon goes down there to listen, and as he gets there, somebody's talking. So Gideon has something to think about. The guy says, I had a dream. He was saying, a round loaf of barley bread came tumbling into the Midianite camp. It struck the tent with such force that the tent overturned and collapsed. God's sense of humor. The guy's dreaming about a loaf of bread. And the loaf of bread is the thing that wipes out the Midianites. It's so humorous in so many ways, right? That God would choose that. He's not choosing some intimidating imagery that's going to just scare these guys to death. He's letting this guy have a dream about a loaf of bread, a loaf of barley bread. It hits the tent. Okay. Well, his friend responded, and here's the key. This can be nothing other than the sword of Gideon, son of Joash. Okay, this loaf of bread, that's got to mean Gideon and his army, his sword, the Israelite. Uh-oh. God has given the Midianites and the whole camp into his hands. This guy's conclusion, after hearing about the loaf of barley bread, is that God is going to wipe out the Midianites through Gideon, the soldier. How did this guy get that from a loaf of barley bread? Well, God knows how to put fear in the heart of his enemies. God knows how to direct the thoughts of the evil people that hate him. And that's exactly what's happening here. This guy comes to a conclusion that God gave him. Why? Because God's going to create the victory. When Gideon heard the dream and its interpretation, what did he do? He worshiped God. God, I see now that you're working in the minds of the Midianites to accomplish your victory. The guy comes up with the fact that we're going to beat him because a loaf of barley bread rolled into a tent and knocked it down. God, that has to be you. Who else would be scared of a loaf of barley bread, right? Well, he returned to the camp of Israel and called out, "Get up, the Lord has given the Midianite camp into your hands." So Gideon is finally now the mighty warrior that God called him in chapter 6. He's ready to go. God has convinced him, and the rolling loaf of barley bread has pushed him over the edge. He's ready to go. Dividing the 300 men into 3 companies, he placed trumpets and empty jars in the hands of all of them with torches inside. Wait a minute. Okay, so we're going to go fight this vast army, this huge number of guys, and what are we taking? Are we taking catapults and slingshots and swords and spears and shields? No, hey, let's take trumpets and let's take empty jars that have torches inside of them. Yeah, that'll do it. That's all we need. And we only have 300 guys, so okay, let's divide into 3 groups of 100, and we're going to go get them. Just think of how illogical, how every military academy would say this is a really bad plan. But it's God's plan. How to win a war? Win a war that God wants you to win. You follow him, he'll lead you all the way. It's not about opponents. It's not about their strength. It's not about how skilled they may be or how skilled you may be. It's about following God to the victory he has decreed. Here we go. Watch me, he told them. Follow my lead. When I get to the edge of the camp, do exactly as I do. When I and all who are with me blow our trumpets. So first we're going to make a big loud noise. Then from all around the camp, blow yours. And when you do that, you're blowing your trumpet, I want you to shout. What should we shout, Gideon? Well, shout for the Lord and for Gideon. Shout that. Wow. All right. Doesn't seem like a well thought out military tactic unless you think about the power that God is going to exert against his enemies through this action. Gideon and the 100 men with him reached the edge of the camp at the beginning of the middle watch, just after they had changed the guard. They blew their trumpets. They broke the jars that were in their hands. The 3 companies blew the trumpets and smashed the jars, grasping the torches in their left hands and holding in their right hands the trumpets they were to blow. They shouted, "A sword for the Lord and for Gideon." So you got 300 guys surrounding this camp, at least somewhat, and they could take these actions. What happens? Well, God wins the battle. And how does he do it? He impacts the Midianites' minds. Their fear level is off the chart. While each man held his position around the camp, all the Midianites ran, crying out as they fled. These are battle-tested guys who've been oppressing Israel for the last 7 years, have had their way in whatever they chose to do, and now they're running for their lives. When the 300 trumpets sounded, the Lord caused the men throughout the camp to turn on each other with their swords. The army fled to Beth Shittah towards Erah, and as far as the border of Abel Manolah near Tabath. Wow, the Lord caused. That's the point. Israelites from Naphtali, Asher, and Manasseh, and all Manasseh were called out, and they pursued the Midianites. Gideon sent messengers throughout the hill country of Ephraim, saying, "Come down against the Midianites and seize the waters of the Jordan ahead of them as far as Beth Barah." All the men of Ephraim were called out, and they took the waters of the Jordan as far as Beth Barah. So they did what he told them. They also captured 2 of the Midianite leaders, Oreb and Zeb. They killed Oreb at the rock of Oreb and Zeb at the winepress of Zeb. In other words, now they have total domination over their enemies. They pursued the Midianites and brought the heads of Oreb and Zeb to Gideon, who was by the Jordan. How do you win a war? You win a war when you submit to God's plan and forget about the odds and forget about the common sense that creates the fear or the confidence. The confidence is in God. Obedience is essential. God has the power to accomplish everything he decides to do. Our job? Obey. Believe. Obey. God bless you, church. Serve him well today.
Who is it who for sinners shed his blood, and now for cleansing all can plunge beneath that flood?